Goblin launch detected.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further as you can use the promo code MTGMudsta to get you 5% off anything on the site. Or if you're in Canada like me, you can use the same promo code at Multizone to get 10% off your orders of singles. If cards aren't what you're looking for, Original Magic Art has playmats, tokens, and sweet art that you can use that same promo code to help you get 5% off your order there. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game is a little different since it's actually a brand new playgroup and it's been submitted by one of my viewers. Please bear in mind that they don't have a setup like mine, so it's a bit shaky at some points. Big thanks to Stuart and his crew, and in this game Stuart is playing the Dragon, keeping Saphira the Anointed, Changeling Outcast, Haven of the Spirit Dragon, 2 Plains, a Swamp, and Exotic Orchard. Thomas is playing Kynaios and Tiro, keeping Selfless Squire, Deflecting Palm, Mountain, Forbidden Orchard, Temple Garden, Frontier Bivouac, and Training Center. Alex is playing Kodama of the East Tree and Kamahl Heart of Krosa, keeping Rampaging Baloths, Llanowar Elves, Turntimber Symbiosis, Mossword Bridge, and 3 Forests. Last but not least is Ethan, playing Livio and Ikra Shadiq, keeping 2 Forests, Tainted Wood, Wood Elves, Grave Titan, Arcane Signet, and Liberate. Ethan wins the die roll and starts us off. He plays a tapped Sandstep Citadel, passing. Alex plays a Forest and casts Llanowar Elves. Stuart plays a Haven of the Spirit Dragon, and then casts a Changeling Outcast. Thomas just plays a tap Frontier Bivouac, passing. Ethan just plays a Plains and pays 2 to cast Talisman of Hierarchy. Alex plays a Mossword Bridge which comes in tapped, and hides away a card. Stuart plays an Exotic Orchard, and swings the Outcast at Thomas for 1. Thomas plays a Temple Garden tapped, passing turn. Ethan plays Makokoro, and casts a Springbloom Druid. He sacrifices the Plains to go and find a Plains and a Swamp which come in tapped. Alex plays a Forest, and casts Growing Rites of Itlimoc. He looks at his top 4 and unfortunately whiffs. Stuart plays a Plains, and then swings the Outcast at Alex for 1 this time, passing to Thomas. Thomas just plays a Forbidden Orchard. Ethan plays a Tainted Field, and casts Eldrazi's Displacer. He activates the Eldrazi's ability to flicker the Springbloom Druid, sacrificing another Plains as it comes in to find a Plains and a Forest. Alex just plays a Forest, and casts Seedborn Muse. Alex untaps with Stuart, and Stuart plays an Island and casts Kodama's Reach to go and find a Forest for the field and a Mountain to his hand. Thomas's turn has him playing a Training Center, and then taps out and gives a Spirit to Ethan to cast Smothering Tithe. Ethan draws, and does not pay for the Tithe trigger, and pays 2 to cast a Charming Prince, and chooses to exile the Springbloom Druid. He then casts Sword of Hearth and Home, and equips it onto the Displacer. Moving to combat, he swings at Stuart, who takes the 5. When it deals combat damage, Ethan gets to search his library for a basic, and he gets to flicker a creature, choosing the Charming Prince. As it comes back, he gains 3 life. And at the end of turn, the Druid comes back into play, letting him sacrifice a Forest, and going to find 2 more basics. Alex plays a Reliquary Tower, and taps out to cast one of his commanders, Kodama the First Tree. Stuart plays a Mountain, and taps out to cast Saphira the Anointed. Moving to combat, he swings at Ethan for 3 unblockable, which when it connects, has Stuart drawing a card and not paying for the Smothering Tithe trigger. Thomas plays a Mountain, and casts his commander, Kynaios and Tiro of Meletis. He then sacrifices 4 treasures and casts Daryl, Hunter of Walkers. And at the end of turn, Ethan draws, Alex draws, and Stuart puts a land into play, and this has Thomas making 2 more treasures. Ethan draws, and doesn't pay the tithe tax. He casts a Terastodon which gets swiftly countered by Thomas with an Arcane Denial. and he also gives him a spirit from the orchard in exchange to hopefully help him not feel so bad. Ethan then swings at Thomas with the displacer, which he can't block, and upon connecting, flickers the charming prince, and he goes to find a basic. The prince then re-enters and scries 2. Alex plays a forest for turn and casts a Beast Whisperer, followed by an Augur of Autumn, which draws him a card and makes Thomas a treasure. Passing the turn, he transforms the Growing Rites into Itlamok, Cradle of the Sun. Stuart plays a land for turn and casts Chameleon Colossus. Moving to combat, he swings the Outcast at Alex for 3 unblockable, and gets to draw a card, and this time pays for the Smothering Tithe trigger. At Thomas's upkeep, he chooses to give Stuart 3 Walker tokens. He then casts Soul Ring, and follows up with an Urbrass the Hidden, and then a Miri Weatherlight Duelist. He swings Miri at Ethan, who takes the hit, and moving to his end step, gets his Kynaios and Tiro trigger, and this has Ethan and Alex drawing a card, and Stuart putting a land into play. Ethan casts a Talisman of Resilience, and then casts Netherborn Phalanx, which has each of his opponents lose life equal to the number of creatures they control. Alex loses 5, Stuart loses 6, and Thomas loses 4. Ethan then swings the Displacer at Alex, who takes the hit, and this lets him find a basic, and he flickers the Phalanx as well. Before the trigger resolves, Thomas taps Daryl to take out one of the walkers, and the Phalanx then enters, and the players lose life again, at which point Alex activates his Mosswort Bridge, putting out Liege of the Tangle into play, which triggers Kodama, and lets him put a Rampaging Baloth into play. Alex draws, and pays 8 to cast his other commander, Kamahl, Heart of Krosa, which as it enters, lets him put an Oran Reef Hydra into play. He also gets to draw a card from casting a creature spell. He then plays a land off the top of his library, getting to make a 4/4 beast from the Rampaging Baloth and putting some counters onto the Hydra. He then pays 7 to cast a Turn Timber Symbiosis, and he hits Endraiser Forerunners, who come in, and his team get +2/+2, Vigilance, and Trample. The Forerunners also let Alex put a Dawnglade Regent into play, making him the Monarch. Moving to combat, he swings the team at Ethan, which Thomas responds to by casting Ethereal Haze and Fog's Combat. Alex then moves to the end of his turn and draws from being the Monarch. Stuart casts a Maskwood Nexus, and then Rin and Ciri inseparable. Moving to combat, he swings the Outcast at Ethan for 3 and gets to draw a card and passes. Thomas gives Ethan 3 walkers in his upkeep and plays a Plains for his land drop. He casts Audric and then casts Combat Calligraphers. He moves to combat swinging Miri at Ethan, which makes an Inkling token as she swings. Ethan blocks Miri, but does take 2. At Thomas's end step, Kynaios and Tiro trigger, and all of his opponents end up drawing a card this time around. Ethan plays a Swamp for turn, and pays 7 for a Highcliff Feldar. He chooses Urbrask, Rin and Ciri, and Dawnglade Regent, and has them destroyed. He then casts a Noxious Gearhulk, and destroys the Liege of the Tangle, and gains 8. Ethan then moves to combat, and Alex responds casting Krosan Grip to take out the Gearhulk. Ethan then swings the Displacer at Alex, who takes the hit, and Ethan gets to search for a basic, and flickers the Feldar, and with the ability on the stack, Thomas responds by tapping Daryl to take out one of Ethan's walkers. The Feldar then returns, which takes out the Chameleon Colossus, the Oran Reef Hydra, and Daryl. Passing, Ethan draws at the end of turn for being the Monarch. Alex plays a land for turn, and gets a Kodama trigger, and gets to put out another land, making him 2 beast tokens. He taps Itlamok and animates 6 lands with Kamahl. Moving to combat, Kamahl gives his team Overrun, and he swings all of his lands, a beast, the Rampaging Baloth, an Inkling token from the Calligrapher, the Forerunners, Kamahl, Kodama, and the Augur all at Ethan. The players resolve damage, and Ethan decides to take out the Rampaging Baloths, the Augur of Autumn, and the Springbloom Druid. Ending his turn, Alex then draws from being the Monarch and passes. Stuart moves to combat on his turn and swings the outcasted Alex for 3. He then plays a Grave Shifter, gaining 1 life as it enters from the Seraph Sanctuary he'd played earlier, and also gets to return Rin and Ciri to hand, which he then recasts, and also gains another life as they enter, since everything is an angel because of the Maskwood Nexus. He then casts a Taurian Mauler, gaining more life, and makes a cat and a dog token. He then pays 2 for a Rampant Growth, going to find a basic, and then passes turn, drawing once he's done shuffling because he's the Monarch. Thomas casts Gisela Blade of Gold Knight in his main phase, a self-proclaimed classic. Moving to combat, he swings Miri and Kynaios and Tiro at Alex, and the rest at Stuart. This is enough damage to take Alex out, and deals 20 to Stuart. In his second main phase, he casts Leyline of Anticipation, and passes. Stuart casts a Webweaver Changeling in his main phase, and makes another cat and dog token. He then activates the Maskwood Nexus, making a 2/2 Shapeshifter, and gaining more life. He then taps Rin and Ciri to deal 12 damage, which is halved to Audric. In response, Thomas casts Teferi's Protection, and having tapped his Forbidden Orchard, gives Stuart a Spirit token. With no response to the protection, Stuart realizes that he's dead on the swingback, and the players scoop it up. Game review time. I thought Alex's Kodama and Kamahl deck was pretty sweet for a mono green deck, and it worked really well. I don't really know him or the playgroup all that well, but I do kind of question that Krosan grip on the Noxious Gearhulk that Alex used, because on the table there was a better target with the Smothering Tithe, although I guess Thomas had already gotten a ton of treasures out of it and his value at the very least. Although I guess it does make a lot more sense when you look at Ethan's deck as a whole, since it seemed to be based around ETB effects. He probably wanted to get rid of the Noxious Gearhulk to prevent Ethan from keeping all the creatures off the board and gaining tons of life by blinking the Noxious Gearhulk over and over again. I like Stuart's Ur-Dragon deck, and it reminded me heavily of Tomer's Tribal deck. I'm always excited to see what people are running in their Tribal decks, like I had never seen Tomer play Sashiro, so it was great to see Stuart do so. Thomas's Kynaios and Tiro deck was interesting to see in action, and it's kind of weird and has made me check my own kind of bias, because I typically assume that this kind of deck is going to be a group hug deck, and not kind of aggressive like this one was. This pretty much exemplifies what I love about EDH, which is where a game can completely blow up my preconceived notions about what a deck should do or how it should play out, and everyone's deck is different and fun to see. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.